Welcome to the #1 spot health and wellness practitioners go to double their current income and turn their 10-hour work day into a 10-hour work week. Join us as we dive into the tips, tools, and tech you need to create a life and practice on your own terms. More freedom, flexibility, fulfillment, and of course, funds. It's time to build your online practice. And I'm your host, Michelle Rogers, also known as the Wealthy Woman. Be sure to subscribe for your weekly dose of education, inspiration, and action. Let's get started. All right, so today we are diving into something that might seem a little unrelated at first, but trust me, it is all connected. We are talking about surfing. Yes, surfing. For those of you who don't know, I have been living in Mexico now for about 3.5 years, and specifically living in Puerto Escondido for the past couple of months, which is one of the top surf spots in the world. So, of course, I had to take lessons, right? So, what I want to talk about today is how learning how to surf is kind of related to building your online practice. So stick with me because by the end of this episode, you will see how embracing the waves of fear, challenge, and resistance can actually lead you to your most successful version of yourself. All right, so now keep in mind that prior to moving here, I hadn't even touched a surfboard. So just keep that in mind as we are chatting here today. Now, in expat communities, I don't know if you have experienced this yourself or not, if you've been an expat or no expats or whatever, but there is a plethora of WhatsApp groups to connect you to anything and everything you could possibly want in whatever area you are in. It's incredible and it can be a little bit overwhelming, but anyways, there's this women's group here, like a women's only group here, a WhatsApp group. And one of the women inside of the group had sent out a message seeing if anybody was interested in creating a small group for surf lessons. And so I had already, it had already crossed my mind. I was kind of thinking about it. And so I felt the nudge as one does, right? And so I decided to jump on the opportunity and I purchased a package of 4 lessons. Knowing myself ever so intimately, I knew that buying a package was the only way that I was going to remain accountable, right? Like if it was going to be one-on-one lessons or one-off lessons, I would have made some kind of excuse to be like, I don't want to go, or I can't go, or I don't feel like waking up at 5 a.m. and doing my sunrise surf lesson. So I did the package of 4. Okay. So first lesson, awesome. Had a great experience. Second lesson was seriously just like a battle with the waves. Like I felt like I was just being punched and knocked down, and it was a challenge. And I think because of that, the third lesson, I was becoming really sort of like dominated by anxiety and fear. Like it was really affecting me to the point where I was feeling kind of like emotional. Like I had to have a moment just like sitting on my board in the water, just kind of floating and like just needed to have a moment. And so the truth is, after that day and for that whole week post that third lesson, I was thinking about like not going to my last surf lesson. And what happened was like the night before my lesson, I was just making every excuse I possibly could around why I should cancel. Things like, it's fine, like I'll just lose out. It's just $30, like no big deal, whatever. I don't really like it that much anyway, right? I'm not going to become a pro surfer, so why bother? Basically coming up with all the stories. But I decided to lean in to the discomfort, the fear, the whatever was coming up, as I tend to do, as I've trained myself to do. And I went. Turns out, I show up, it's, 5:50 a.m. in the morning, like the sun's not even out yet. And all the other girls had canceled. So I ended up with a private lesson, right? Which is awesome on one hand, but on the other hand, there's no room to hide. There's no room for me to be like, no, it's cool. Like, you can grab this wave. Like, I'll just hang out, like, float on my board or whatever. Like, there's no room to hide, right? So, as I was sitting there, like during the lesson, I was sitting on my board, laying on my board, whatever, watching the waves rolling in. My instructor is sitting there talking to me, like calling out all the things I need to focus on, right? Like keep your feet parallel, shoulders squared, eyes on the beach, extend your arms, bend your knees a little bit more, lean slightly forward if you want to pick up speed, but relax, feel the wave. Like all of the things. There's so many things you have to, if you've ever taken surf lessons, there's so many things you have to focus on. It's kind of like yoga, actually. Um, but even during all of that, I found myself thinking of all these excuses why I could leave early. Like the self sabotage was a relentless. And the reasoning, right, is because I hate doing things that I'm not good at, right? And my guess is that you probably feel the same, right? So, what I realized on the drive home was that learning something new, whether it's surfing or building your online practice, brings up all of these like really similar fears. We tend to have these certain like habits or trends or patterns that come up when it comes to self sabotage and limiting beliefs and thought patterns and all of that kind of stuff, right? Because whenever we're doing something outside of our comfort zone, it doesn't feel easy. It feels a little awkward and weird and like challenging. And maybe it feels like there's friction or resistance, right? So, like, just like in the water where you've got waves knocking you down, in your business, you are also going to face challenges, right? These things might be new technology, new protocols, new ways of looking at labs, new ways of using social media. All of this stuff can feel like a lot, right? And I really like, I get it. I know what it feels like to be in the trenches, to be second guessing yourself, wondering if you're cut out for this. I mean, when I was building my online practice, there were moments where I was totally ready to throw in the towel. Like, I'm not cut out for this. This isn't, what I don't, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this isn't actually what I want to be doing, right? The fear of failure, self sabotage, the temptation to quit, it all comes up. But the truth is, that those waves of doubt aren't meant to stop you. They're meant to teach you. And guess what? It's like, it's totally normal, right? It's totally normal for us to experience challenge. We can't expect things to just be rainbows and butterflies and smooth sailing all the time. But this doesn't mean that you're not cut out for it. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It doesn't mean that you made the wrong choice, right? It just means that when things get a little bit uncomfortable or challenging, it's providing a really beautiful opportunity for all of our fears and limiting beliefs to chime in. It's just like that's just the way things work, right? As we step out of our comfort zone, it becomes uncomfortable. But the only way to grow, the only way to, move past our current circumstance and situation is to grow. So when we are on the right path and we end up leaning into that discomfort instead of running away from it, avoiding it, hiding from it, right? We usually end up with a really beautiful result on the other side. And so, like for me, I ended up staying in the water, staying for my full lesson, like really sticking it out. And I decided to show up in the best possible way that I could. And I ended up catching the best wave of the entire past like 4 weeks of my lessons. Like I ended on such a high note that I'm now considering like do I want to consider like do I want to keep surfing or not? Like is this something that I want to pursue or not? I'm undecided at this point, but the lesson in this is like it's my choice. I'm not running away from it. It's like a conscious, intentional choice to either move forward and be like, this is something that I want to pursue. This is something that I want to get even better at. Or it's not really my sport and I did it. I feel complete, right? And now I get to try something else. And so I also now, because of that experience, I understand why people love surfing. Like I really, 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 really do. So anywho, like I get to choose from a grounded space. Like that's the lesson in this, right? Instead of being reactionary or having my decisions based on my emotions, right? I do know, like, I don't want to go pro. Like, I'm not interested in like being a pro surfer. But, what is something that I could consider? Do I want my own board? Do I want to get to the point where I feel safe and secure going out on my own without an instructor? I don't know. We'll see. My question for you, like with this whole story and this whole share, is when it comes to your online practice, like, do you actually want to build this thing? Do you actually want to build your online practice? Is that the end result that you desire in your core? Like, really take a moment, ask yourself, because this is where like the answer comes. This is where things get really, really real, right? Like, do you want that end result, or are you just playing around with the idea because it sounds nice and oh, maybe it would be easier, or oh, that like looks, enticing, or blah, 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 right? Or like, do you actually want this? Because it is a very different, unconventional, alternative lifestyle, right? So, like, imagine what's possible. If you decide this is the route that you want to go, imagine what's possible when you lean into the discomfort that you feel whenever it comes up. What if you could work with your dream clients from anywhere in the world, right? Because the thing is, if you do want the result that is actually possible for you, if you want the freedom, the flexibility, the fulfillment, the financial sovereignty, the only choice available to you is to keep going, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, right? You've probably heard people say, like, we choose our hard. You choose your hard. It's hard to stay stuck where you're currently at. And it's hard to grow to the next level, right? Either way, it's hard. You choose your hard. But honestly, the most successful practitioners, the most successful people, business owners I know, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. This has been probably the biggest lesson I've learned being an entrepreneur, is to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that is where the growth happens, right? And I, like, I don't know about you, but I will choose growth over stagnation every freaking day of the month. Like, always, 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 always. But if it's not for you, if that's not the path you want, if that is not like where you're going and what you desire, like, stop. Like, stop, right? You don't have to. Tap into what you want and you desire, right? My guess is that if you are still listening, you are listening to this podcast, you want it, right? You want to build that online practice. You have a deep desire, deep yearning to do it. So I encourage you, whatever fear, whatever challenge, whatever it is that you're facing right now that feels hard in your online practice, I want you to think about how you can lean in. What new skill can you hone? What new perspective or belief can you adopt? What resources can you utilize? What people might be able to help you get there, right? If no one has told you today, you are capable of more than you think. You are capable of more than you think. You've got everything you need inside of you right now to create and build the online practice of your dreams. And if you're looking for more support on how to do it, you know where to find me. Yeah? All right, that is all that I have for you today. I just again encourage you to get comfortable with being uncomfortable if that is the one lesson that you walk away with today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you next week. All right, that's a wrap for today. If you want the exact breakdown of how I help practitioners go from their first 5K to consistent 50K months with just 2 offers, 10 hours per week, and an audience of less than 500 people, be sure to click the link in the podcast description or head to wealthywoman.co/breakdown. To make sure you don't miss an episode, be sure to subscribe. And for daily online practice insights, follow me on Instagram at wealthywoman.co. Let's create your life of wealth, full of abundance, purpose, health, wealth, and joy.